The official start of production of the all-new Ford Ranger is right behind the corner, with this model being slated into production later this fall. After so much waiting, Ford finally decided to introduce a proper American Ford Ranger that has American DNA. And since we're already familiar with what this truck will look like, we could say that the feedback from the audience is generally positive. But there are also some negative aspects that are worth covering. So if you want to learn more about the pros and cons of the new Ford Ranger, stay with us while we cover the 2024 Ford Ranger, the pros that will surprise you, and the cons that you can't ignore. First, let's start with the pros of the new Ford Ranger and learn more about the positive things that this new model should bring to the table. Revised platform. The new Ford Ranger will receive a revised platform that features many upgrades compared to its predecessor. The new platform will be dubbed T6.2 since it's an evolution of the platform used in the previous model that was sold until now. This new platform shares the same dimensions and size as well as the same hardpoints for mounting engines and transmissions. But according to Ford's engineer Ian Foston, the T6 and T6.2 platforms are not interchangeable. The new model features an increased wheelbase and wider tracks, as well as a completely new suspension that is placed further outboard. This change in layout allows more room for spring/damper articulation, thus improving the handling capabilities regardless of the load. Overall, the new platform drives and feels a lot better compared to the previous platform because of these upgrades. New powerful powertrains. The new Ford Ranger will also implement a lot of powertrain options. For the US market, there will be 3 different engine options available. The base engine will be the 2.3-liter inline-4 EcoBoost. This engine will be the standard engine just like in the previous model of the Ranger. And although quite small, the 2.3-liter is a very capable engine, able to tow up to 7,500 pounds. This engine develops 270 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. An optional engine will be the 2.7-liter V6 EcoBoost. This is another very capable engine, but will cost you extra if you want to opt it out. This engine produces 315 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. And this engine is probably the engine you need because it has a lot of torque, which is perfect for good acceleration and pleasant driving. And the last engine is the 3-liter V6 EcoBoost. This engine comes only with the new Ford Ranger Raptor. This engine is the most powerful in the Ranger lineup, and it produces 405 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. All models for the US market will come with a 10-speed automatic transmission as standard. Unfortunately, there's no information on whether we're going to see a manual option in the Ford Ranger. Great towing capability. The Ford Ranger is expected to have a towing capacity of 7,500 pounds. We say that this is an excellent performance. The only better performing trucks in the midsize segment are the Chevy Colorado and the Jeep Gladiator. Both of these trucks can tow up to 7,700 pounds. But the advantage of the Ford Ranger is that this model allows a maximum towing performance of 7,500 pounds on any model. It doesn't matter if you have the 2.3-liter or 2.7-liter engines. Both of them can tow up to 7,500 pounds. The only model that will be limited in this area is the Ranger Raptor, which can only tow up to 5,510 pounds. But the Ranger Raptor is a sports model, so towing is not the priority here. Great suspension setup. Another big pro of this new Ford Ranger is that it has a lot better suspension setup compared to the previous model. This model, as we noted, has an increased wheelbase and wider tracks and a completely new suspension that is placed further outboard. This results in much better driving characteristics as well as great driving comfort. The standard model uses the old-school leaf spring setup in the rear, but the Ford Ranger Raptor uses a very advanced coilover suspension that drives like a dream. If you're a fan of driving over uneven terrain, this model is definitely for you. With the Ranger Raptor, you'll never feel those bumps. Great off-road model. And when we talk about off-road, we cannot avoid talking about the Ranger Raptor itself. This model is basically the most aggressive midsize pickup truck that you can get right now. This model is all about driving through mud, snow, and sand, and the Ranger Raptor will tackle any type of terrain out there with great ease. As we noted previously, for this purpose, there is the coilover rear suspension, all-terrain tires, 2.3 inches in width more compared to the standard model, and most importantly, a ton of different driving modes. There's a driving mode for any type of scenario with this truck. In addition to this, there's the 3.0 V6 EcoBoost, which is the most powerful engine in the Ranger lineup that makes 405 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. Overall, the Ranger Raptor is definitely the king of the midsize segment at this point, considering the options and features that it delivers. Great exterior design. The new Ford Ranger also offers very good exterior styling compared to its predecessor. If you looked at the predecessor, you would come to the conclusion that something is not right, and your assumption would be correct. This Ford Ranger that was produced until now was not a proper model for the US market. The model simply lacked the American DNA, since it was built mainly for global markets. But now Ford decided to create a truck specifically for the American market. And the new Ford Ranger does that pretty well. The new model has a huge presence on the road with its bold appearance that features two C-shaped headlights and a massive front grille. The rest of the truck is pretty much the same as its predecessor, but the front end is the area that matters when it comes to pickup trucks, and the new Ford Ranger simply delivers. Great interior design and technology. Another area where the new Ranger does its job really well is the interior. The new Ford Ranger features a completely new interior design. This interior design greatly complements the exterior, and together, they make one perfect fusion. The overall design of the dash and center console is really good. There are soft-touch materials everywhere, and most importantly, you have massive screens, both for the center cluster, which is now 10.1 inches in diameter, and the infotainment screen, which is one massive 12.4-inch vertically mounted screen. You also have two giant cup holders. Overall, the new Ford Ranger is a really nice place to be in. We've covered the pros, now let's discuss more about the cons of the new Ford Ranger. There are also some downsides of this model as well, so let's cover them. Max payload lower than before. The first con we need to share with you is the lower maximum payload capacity compared to the previous model. The previous model of the Ford Ranger has a maximum payload capacity of 1,905 pounds, while the new 2024 Ford Ranger has 1,805 pounds of payload. This is 100 pounds less compared to the older model, and is definitely a drawback considering the fact that the older trucks deliver more payload. But when you compare the performance of the new model compared to the competition, the Ford Ranger still has one of the best-in-class performance. In contrast, the Jeep Gladiator can have a payload of 1,710 pounds, while the Chevy Colorado can take a payload of 1,684 pounds. So, considering this data, the new Ford Ranger still performs quite well in terms of payload. High fuel consumption. The fuel economy of the new Ford Ranger is not one of the best out there. When you compare this truck to the smaller Maverick, the numbers of the Ranger are really poor. The Ranger with a 2.3-liter engine can deliver 21 mpg in the city and 26 mpg on the highway, while the 2.7-liter V6 delivers 19 mpg in the city and 21 mpg on the highway. We feel the need for a hybrid option. Ford has to work on a hybrid model that will be more efficient than these two engines in order to satisfy the needs of the people who want efficiency. No diesel option. Another downside that we must note is the lack of diesel options. The global model of the Ford Ranger has 3 diesel engines, while the US model of the Ranger has 0 diesel options. This is really bad considering that this is a truck, and trucks should come in diesel variants. With diesel, you benefit from great towing performance as well as from great fuel efficiency. Diesel engines are far more efficient compared to gas-powered engines when it comes to truck applications. This is why we think that Ford should include a 3.0 V6 Power Stroke in one of the next model years of this truck. Higher price tag. The starting price tag of the older model is about $27,400, but the new model is expected to get a price increase. The price is not officially announced by Ford, but according to many industry experts, the price should increase. The new model is expected to start at $30,000, which is a huge increase compared to the older model. This is why we honestly think that this is one of the cons of the truck, because not many people would like to purchase a truck at this price point. And that's all for today's video. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.